Hey everyone, welcome back for another encounter building method. I'm John from Dumbest D&D, and today we're looking at one of my personal favorites, the Chosen One. And the reason that I really like this one is there's a lot of different directions you can take it. There's like 4 main avenues that we'll cover, but this is kind of the standard trope of Neo from the Matrix, Luke Skywalker, or Anakin Skywalker to a degree in Star Wars. Lisan al-Gaib in Dune. That to me is one of my uh, more recent favorites, just because Stilgar or Javier Bardem in that movie is just ridiculous. Everything ties into that. We'll get to that in a minute, but wanted to start to walk through a few of the different ways to break this down. And again, this is an easy way to take a situation, take a location that your party may be in D&D or any TTRPG, and really start to break out encounters. I have a series of these. I find that it is helpful both for me as a DM, as well as for others. A lot of you have said this is helpful to break down how you go about tying these ideas into then creating encounters. So for the Chosen One, let's start off with one of the party is mistaken for the Chosen One. I mentioned Dune and Lisan al-Gaib, Stilgar in that movie. So he is kind of this main guy from the Fremen who's saying everything that Timothy Chalamet does is, oh, Lisan al-Gaib. And there's been a lot of memes around this as well, where, he makes a sandwich, oh, Lisan al-Gaib. And he's the Chosen One. He's the leader of our people. Like, he was the one that was prophesied about previously. So let's start off in wooded town, for example. So with a wooded town, and in that town they've fallen on to some hard times. The party comes in. It really doesn't matter what level. That's the beauty of this encounter building method as well. It doesn't matter the level, although the higher level the party is, the more impressive and the more they can really tap into, oh, this is a demigod, this is somebody else. Something as simple as they've fixed a leaky bucket. So let's say they're using mending and just kind of put hands on the bucket. It fixes itself, and suddenly everybody's like, "Oh, look at this individual that has come into our town and has these strange ways." It's as the prophecies foretold, our ancient tomes. So you can either build it up or you can make it immediate, right? There's other things like C-3PO where because he has these powers, the Ewoks immediately are like, the shiny god is here. But let's just start with this one. You have within this town probably an elder, right? You have kind of the ancient one who holds all the tomes. It's a little backwards, or not backwards so much. Let's call it simple. So they're simple people. They're not a big bustling town where they're importing and exporting all of these exotic goods. It's more, we chop down trees, we send these out, we've fallen on hard times, and suddenly this person comes along and has fixed something for us. There's some mythos that starts to build, right? So we'll say mythos builds, more acts of astonishment. And as this builds, the way to portray it within your campaign is it can be small or it can be very blatant. Like, it can be very subtle. People are whispering, and so if you talk to them directly, they're like, no, everything's good. But as you start to do things or you walk around, people are whispering about the party. They're whispering about this individual, and they're really starting to kind of build up. And everything that is touched or happens in these acts of astonishment, more whispers. More whispers. More praise. And it kind of comes to a head at some point as well. So I mentioned this elder up here. The elder probably approaches them at some point and is like, oh, hey, like, what are you thinking about doing? Like, are you here to fulfill the final prophecy? That's a scary concept. So in Ghostbusters, right, they're at the top of the roof, and they're being asked if they are the chosen one up there. Dan Aykroyd obviously gives the wrong answer, but ultimately, is there a final test of proving that they're the chosen one? This is where the party has a chance to either cop to it and be like, look, we're just standard adventurers. Yes, we have some magic. Yes, we have some cool things about us. But will they own it? Or will they avoid it? And that's a key decision they get to make. Because then a lot of times if you own it, in these situations of the chosen one, there's not really any sort of reward. It's more just you have selected to do this and be their representative, be their champion. And that in itself is an act that is worthy of greatness. And so if owned, immortalized forever, bards will sing songs about you, and suddenly, you are forever immortalized in this way. Now, the final test, this is something that this could be small. It could be a very small thing. It could be something very large, right? But this elder is going to come up and be like, chosen one, you have done so much for us already, but maybe you have this final task that you could do. Now, if the party decides to own it, there's got to be some danger involved, right? It again, depends on how you want to run this, and if it really is kind of this backwards town, or a backwoods town, I want to clarify. It could be something where, it is small, and if it's just a one session story arc, you're probably not going to want to dive too deep into it, and it ends up just being the final encounter for that particular session. Turns out there's a 3-headed owlbear that is terrorizing the area, and you gotta go defeat it. But ultimately, you gotta figure out what this final test is. That's not something that I can do for you, but it does really help finish out this. The party is mistaken for the chosen one. One other piece of this that I think is fun is the actual chosen one appears. And so at this point, you now have some conflict where the people of the town, they saw you first, you fit most of the description, they filled in the rest on their own, but now the actual chosen one appears. And there are 2 ways to play it. The town accepts them, or the town rejects them. Now, if the town accepts them, at that point, your party can be like, okay, well, we're just going to move on. If the town rejects them, though, this probably builds 2 factions. So you have the folks who select the one from your party. You have the folks that select the one from out of town that is the actual chosen one. This can go one of 2 ways, right? You can play it up as silly, and you can have them fight over stupid stuff. You can play this up as very intense and have them, and we covered the butter battle a while back, but a more intense version of that where at this point you have zealots on either side that are saying, oh no, this is the true chosen one. In reality, your party is probably going to say, we don't care too much. We just showed up and you said that it was us. But if there's prestige, if there is something attached to it, maybe they like the benefits of being the chosen one and they don't want to give that up. So when the 2 factions build, more conflict. And eventually you kind of get down to it where actual and fake chosen one have it out. So maybe there's a final battle between the 2. But within that battle, there's... Well, let's do 2 arcs here. So you can fight each other. About to fight. Interrupted by real threat. Again, let's talk about the 3-headed owlbear that's in the woods that is, kidnapping folks and just really wants to show off its knitting or its whittling and wood carvings that it's been doing on the side out in the woods. But yeah, a lot of different ways that you can slice this part, and this is all just from one of the parties mistaken for the chosen one. So one way to go about it. Another way to think of the chosen one, and I tossed a quick list of chosen ones that I've liked over the years. Mentioned Dune, Star Wars, Matrix, Doomstar. Dethklok is this band that has gotten together and they have to figure out how to stop this evil from coming into the world. And then Life of Brian, which is very much one of the parties mistaken for the chosen one. That one, it's a little sacrilegious, so if you're sensitive to that, that's okay, but want to warn folks, one of the Monty Python movies. Very good, though. It's a lot of fun, and especially if you like more of the silly side of the chosen one trope, this could be a good way for you to go about cutting that up. So the chosen one is missing. So this is one where you get into this wooded town, right? Let's continue with it. Woodtown, their champion, chosen one, is missing. And I think I'm starting to convolute this a bit. Like, I think the chosen one, when I'm talking about chosen one, it's really, there's something supernatural, spiritual, magical about this individual that does make them the chosen one. Now, as we just talked about in one of the parties mistaken for the chosen one, it's possible that they don't have the right guy, or it's possible that they have a Wizard of Oz situation where the chosen one actually isn't anything special. They've just built up this idea around him, or the chosen one themselves has built up this idea around them. Maybe they are the ones that carved the golden plates and gave it to the folks of the town. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I love this method so much, is there's so many different ways you can take it. There's so many different ways that you can cut it up. But yeah, the chosen one is missing. Their chosen one is missing. I've said that multiple times now. It could be a couple different things, right? Like, party must find them. There's going to be rumors. Rumors of what happened. Toss this over here. So we have kidnapped. Ran away. Maybe the folks in town think that they couldn't make it, and so they just disappeared. Rumors of what happened. Murdered by a cult. So maybe this warring faction that said, "Hey, no, we don't like your chosen one." Yeah, has strayed and become evil. Another one would just be unwilling to accept it. And so here are just 5 different ways that we can branch this off, and the party has to solve these problems then. So let's say, kind of get into these. What are the different things that you would have to do to resolve this? Each of these is kind of its own encounter. So party must figure out what's going on. The individual is kidnapped. This becomes a mystery. There are clues. There are things that have happened. When they find that the person is kidnapped, is it truly they were kidnapped? Who were they kidnapped by? Or did they pretend that they were kidnapped because they were getting tired of the people pestering them? They're like, I'm not the Lee Gaib, like I'm not this guy, I'm not the chosen one. It's too much pressure. I don't want it. I'm gonna stage my own kidnapping just so I can get out of here. So kind of ties into that ran away. Murdered by a cult. So at that point, what happens? Do you fight the cult? Do you figure out why that person was murdered by the cult? Who is the chosen one of that cult? So even more tiers that we can break off into here. Has strayed and become evil. Why would that be the case? Was it a lady that comes along? You have Samson and Delilah. Samson cuts his hair because Delilah's like, oh, it looks so good. And he's like, but my strength is there. And, maybe that's a kind of direction you can take it. It's always a succubus, right? Like, Everybody's got one. And then unwilling to accept it is another one. So you may have, the party has to go convince them. Now, your party could be like, well, actually, I am the chosen one. And we go all the way back over to the party was mistaken for the chosen one. But really, you can determine, why does that person not want to accept it? How would we go about convincing them? What are some things that we could do? Is it too much pressure? Is it that they're scared that they're going to fail? Like, what are the different ways that this person is unwilling to accept that they are the chosen one? So that's another route that we can take. Chosen one is missing. We'll go over here. Party must seek out and protect the chosen one. So this kind of ties into these a bit, but is more something where if they're, let's say their party is in Greyhawk, and the king hears of the chosen one out in Woodtown and is like, I need this individual on my council. I need to understand how they've saved this Woodtown. And the party, it's really a fetch quest, right? It's a fetch and defend. So party must find them. When they get to Woodtown, any of the things from over here can happen. So any of the bits that we talked through in the first two, those could all be new scenarios that you have to get into. So maybe this ends up being more of the hook. But once you grab the chosen one, shenanigans. So as you're leaving town and finally getting out of the circle of Woodtown, they're getting out into the open. Maybe two things are happening. You have chosen one is vulnerable side of the cities, and you have to protect them. You have ability for those who oppose chosen one attack. So just another mission where essentially transporting the chosen one back to the back to Greyhawk, and need to just make sure that they get there. So a lot of different avenues for this one. I feel like we're starting to overlap a lot, so I'll kind of round out here. But here's one of the other ones that I'd like. Chosen one is here, but they suck. So whether this is a case of mistaken identity and they're not the actual chosen one, and they're like, Woodtown says this is the best we're gonna get. How do you fix that? So how can the party help? When we think about these, right? You know, you could even say, oh, like, they were kidnapped. Now we get into these other situations where they were kidnapped, or the fake kidnapping, or whatever it may be. Yeah, just really, you play up the laziness here. Lazy, arrogant, not a nice guy, leans on, let's say, leans on the fact they are the chosen one to abuse their powers. It's possible that they're magical and they truly are the chosen one, but they're abusing, you know, the thing that made them that way. They're abusing the thing that made them the chosen one. So a lot of fun that you can have with this one, I think. You can play up the arrogance and the, I was told by the higher powers that I don't need to do that thing today. You're misreading the signs, and yeah, you essentially get to determine what happened. This is one where I think 9 times out of 10 the party figures out a way to get them out, whether that is by unaliving them or by convincing them to go away. At that point, though, so let's say unalive the individual, put Steve in power, prop him up as the chosen one. I'm just using Steve as a general individual here, not saying like Steve is a core NPC that's in all of my games. More just an easy way to talk about someone that you put in power. So kind of like a default NPC almost. So who's a guy that you're gonna go find? Oh, I'm gonna go find Steve and put Steve in power, prop him up as chosen one. Must prove the acts of the chosen one. So even more ways to cut this. Again, I really like this as an encounter building method. Hopefully this strikes some inspiration for you. Hopefully this is something that you can leverage in your games. Again, this could be one session. It could be an entire campaign built around this. So one of the things that we didn't really touch on is one of the party actually is the chosen one, right? So you have one key character, maybe their background, denotes that they're from Woodtown, and they're avoiding the fact that they are the chosen one. And so you as a group, all of the campaign kind of ties into them recognizing that they are the chosen one. This gets a little weird because if only one person in the party is the chosen one and not everybody is on board with that, could get a little awkward. People could feel left out and like, oh cool, like this this one player gets all the good stuff and we're stuck over here just cheering them on from the sideline. Hey, you're the chosen one, good job. But it could be a fun thing to explore and could be just a part of your campaign that's not the key focus. It could just be a way to determine, who has the capability to save things at the end of the day. Getting real serious with it, you could even have this be something where there's an ultimate sacrifice at the end. The chosen one has to make the decision. Do I sacrifice myself? Do I sacrifice someone else? Do I sacrifice a town even? Do I sacrifice all of Woodtown in order to make the world the realm a better place? There's so many different ways to run with this one. So I'm hoping that this has been helpful. I'm hoping that this gives you some ideas. Let me know in the comments below how you would leverage this, if there are any other chosen one tropes that you really enjoy. I don't know. I could go on and on about this one, so happy to answer any questions you may have. Again, have way more of these encounter building methods in this playlist, so if you would like to see more, feel free to check those out. But until next time, appreciate you taking the time to watch. Roll high, stay ridiculous.